Hey everyone, Ian here. I just wanted to pop in with a brief introduction to the interviews you're about to watch for a film called Killing Faith, which opens this weekend. It's from Shout Studios and it is a supernatural horror western. It's a very unique movie, as I don't know that I've seen a lot of supernatural horror westerns in my day. But much like the writer director Ned Crowley's previous film, Middleman, for which I interviewed him back in 2016. That was one of my favorite films of that year, and Killing Faith is on my list for 2025. That is high praise for a movie you probably haven't heard of, but it's definitely a movie that you should seek out. Now, you're about to see an interview I did with the star of the film, DeWanda Wise, who acts in the movie with Guy Pearce and Bill Pullman, among others. She plays Sarah, who is a freed slave living in 1849, who must make her way across several treacherous territories with her daughter to see a faith healer, because the daughter has this uncanny ability to kill everything she touches. Now, whether or not this is a force of good or evil or just pure coincidence, as the kind of broken alcoholic doctor, played by Guy Pearce, who accompanies her on this journey, believes that is up for the audience to discover. And there are a lot of discoveries throughout the movie, plenty of twists and turns. That's a cliche, but honestly, watching this film, I rarely had a notion of what was going to happen from moment to moment, all the way up until the end. It's a great, beautiful looking Western with some genuine practical gore effects and chills and a really creepy kid, which is, we need more of those in movies, and genuinely creepy ones, not, the long haired, drippy creatures coming out of the well like in The Ring. We had enough of those, I think. But anyway, I'm rambling. So we're just going to cut to the chase. We'll talk to DeWanda Wise about her character, Sarah, about her reaction to reading this crazy script for the first time and building her character and all the many hats she wore on set, figuratively, in terms of helping to make this independent film go. And in contrast to some of the other bigger films she's worked on, such as Jurassic World Dominion from a few years ago. And then later we'll talk to Ned Crowley, who's the writer-director of the movie, as I mentioned, about coming up with the story and also his commitment to practical effects, to shooting in real locations, and just bringing this crazy story to life. So yeah, I hope you enjoy these interviews. I hope you go out and support this movie. Again, you can just go to Fandango or wherever you look up your showtimes and go out and support this film. I dare say you will not be disappointed, and tell all your friends. So without further ado, I will say before I get out of here, please, if you like this show, like these interviews, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications and all that good stuff. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care. DeWanda, tell me about your reaction to reading Ned Crowley's Killing Faith screenplay for the first time.
That's a really great question. I think it was one of those scripts you read where you're like yelling at the script. You know, if you see a great movie and you're like talking to the screen, sometimes you'll read a script and you have that same response. And, very, very early into reading it, I could feel Sarah. By the time she was going through things emotionally, reading it, I felt those things. And that's always how I know that a story's for me. And because it's indie cinema and we had like multiple, pushing back start dates and trying to accommodate schedules and actors in and actors dropping out, I really had to play linebacker for this story. There was like another opportunity that came up at the same time. And I was like, no, I really think that I need to do this.
Now, what was it about that screenplay that really drew you in, and particularly Sarah Worthington as a character?
It was wild. I think in a present context, there's absolutely been a lot of like erasure of history. And I think our history, our American history, is so vast. It's really expansive, and I don't think I've seen a lot of stories, maybe if any. Like whenever we see Black folks in the 1800s, it's always like in the South, they're still enslaved. And I'd always just wondered like what was happening during westward expansion, you know? I'm naturally fascinated by westward expansion. Like every time I see roads that were built through mountains, I'm like, somebody put dynamite. Somebody put dynamite at the bottom of this mountain so this train could go through that mountain. And the thought that there was nothing and that there were people who just like traveled and lost their lives, and that it was like that wild and unpredictable. It was the kind of environment that was rife for storytelling.
So in digging into this character in this era, did you talk to Ned about, his thought process and his kind of research? Was it an education for you and for him?
I think there was it was definitely an exchange. His touchstone was McCormick and McCormick's work. And so I listen, if you're a director or writer who has a syllabus, I am for you. Okay. I will read a book, I will watch a movie, I will visit a museum. So he kind of gave me a couple of those puzzle pieces. And then I think on my side, I had just been very mindful about the sort of the P's and Q's of what it meant to be a Black woman in 1849. I was just measuring the level essentially of like sass and wit that Sarah had with reality and, any threat and fears of being a Black woman in 1849.
Well, that's one of the things that fascinated me about watching the movie is you are caring for your daughter, and I don't want to get too spoilerific, but it's kind of in the log line about you are trying to transport her to a faith healer because strange things happen around your daughter, and in the film, your daughter is white,
Hmm.
and there's explanations for that as well. But when you go into the town, because you're kind of living outside, the limits, the daughter is the one who is sort of shamed and feared and looked down upon, and your status as a black woman taking care of a white child, that's almost secondary or even tertiary to the reality of the story that it's in. So I think that was the most kind of eye-opening thing to me because I hadn't seen that angle explored. I mean, it's a supernatural story, so why would it be explored? But in this particular case, it was kind of an eyebrow-raising moment.
It's a supernatural story. It's also, that's interesting that you point that out. There's also a subtle element, I think, of class at play because, this shows up on screen and in the story, but not necessarily expositionally, where, Sarah is a woman with means. She can pay to have Guy Pearce's character transport her to where she needs to go. And so it's a kind of early example of this idea that, I think we can never talk enough about, how powerful class is.
Yeah, very much so. And throughout the story, there's a rich ambiguity. There are, details that are revealed, from, minute 10 all the way through almost to the end of the movie. But the film ends. I've only seen it once, so maybe I need to see it again, maybe even three times. But it feels like there are a lot of questions that are left unanswered, but not in a way that felt like a cop out.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you is, did you and the other actors talk to Ned about his answers for these things? Did he have answers? Did you make up your own kind of theories, and did that help you and help inform your performances, the way you interacted with each other?
I think we were all immensely solid on what each of our respective characters thought, believed, and were experiencing in real time. I mean, I think what's fascinating uh, by the end of the story is Sarah's journey actually moves kind of from here to here, like back to a baseline of where she was before. Her faith is absolutely tested. There's not a character in this film whose faith isn't tested in some way, or even walking into, the way that Guy Pearce's character walks into the story, what he believes at the beginning transforms by the end. Um, so yeah, I think we were all very clear. We had to be very clear on what was happening because there's a lot that goes unsaid, unspoken, and under resolved for sure.
Now, going out of the world of the supernatural into the practicalities of filmmaking, this much of the Killing Faith looked like it was filmed in some pretty harsh, unforgiving environments, from
Correct.
hot beating down sun in these quarries to, cold
Accurate.
campfire at night. What
Yes.
was the biggest challenge for you during that shoot?
I mean, because when you're leading something, honestly, what's wild is the biggest challenge is making sure that everyone's taken care of. Especially when you have a movie like this that ends up being like a journeyman film. We had Joanna Cassidy, we had Jamie Newman, we had all these extraordinary performers who were coming to play, and it's already tough. It's indie cinema. So I think I absolutely, since I'm the matriarch of the film, I felt an added level of responsibility to make sure everyone was hydrated, that they had their sunscreen on, That was probably the biggest thing. I just wanted to make sure that everyone felt taken care of and had what they need to do their best job.
You've brought up that phrase indie cinema a couple of times, and I understand what that means, but you've worked on some, major, big studio motion pictures and things. So is that the kind of the key difference, having to wear other hats in terms of just being the center performer in it,
Mhm.
or are there other big differences that you noticed, for better or worse, working on Killing Faith?
The biggest difference is just is resources and being a resourceful actor, you know, and time. Time is, you'll have. I think of Jurassic, and we'll maybe work on like half a scene a day. If you're working in indie cinema, or even like if I think about like She's Gotta Have It, because Spike comes from indie cinema, we were easily shooting like 12 pages a day on a TV show. So there's a certain speed and urgency with which you have to work as an actor. You can't really be languishing. You have to walk in with a level of preparation because there's not going to be a lot of time to talk it through or work it through or memorize your lines on set. And then also, I think I am naturally solutions oriented. So if there's an issue in the moment, if it's all hands on deck in indie film. If you see something, say something. If you think that there's something that can be adjusted, like Ned would troll me and tease me a little bit because he's like, "Who's directing this movie?" But, if Guy and I weren't the actors that we are, we wouldn't have gotten some of the shots that we got just because, you have to be very aware. You don't really have the luxury of just being able to be like, I'm an actor on this. It's not really a thing.
What did you take from Killing Faith as a performer, or just even someone kind of in a leadership position on set, that you're going to take into future roles?
I usually I usually walk away. I always walk away with people. I usually walk away with people. I mean, yes, every time, I think I feel more inspirited and kind of buoyed up. There's like a level of confidence you get from leading things all the time, for sure, and walking away okay. But in this instance, we shot this obviously before like Guy was nominated for an Oscar. And he is just such an extraordinary performer and such an extraordinary human being. And every time I work with an actor and other artists who are just lovely and delightful and have the same kind of priorities I have and are full of humanity, it gives me so much hope. So I just always look forward to continuing to find my kindreds in this industry, whether that's actors, writers, directors, crew folks. It's an enormous gift.
Excellent. Well, you did a tremendous job in a very surprising and powerful movie in several ways. So thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
How are you doing, Ned?
I'm good. I'm good. Good. I like your office. It looks like my office at home, so that's good.
Thank you. Um, so I don't know if you remember this, but in 2016, I interviewed you and Jim O'Hare in your old advertising office in downtown Chicago for your directorial debut, Middleman. Um, Killing
I
Faith. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
I do remember that. I was like, why do I know this guy? And I'm like, maybe I hope I didn't fire him from my ad job at some point.
Nope.
'Cause
Nope.
he's
Nope.
going to be mad.
No, quite the opposite. But Killing Faith is similar in its exploration of kind of everyday characters who are thrust into conflict with the supernatural and a blurring of the lines between reality and spirituality. They're also westerns in their own way. What is it about this theme and genre that excites you?
It's, you know what? I'm so glad you picked up on that because, and thank you. You have watched both movies. I was told they are similar in the approach, and I do like a little bit of humor in there. You're right. I think when I finished Middleman, I really enjoyed so much shooting outdoors. It's not like always wanted to do westerns and things like that. And in a way, my first, Middleman was a bit of a western road picture. I just wanted to go all in on, beautiful landscapes and out there. And I'm like, to me, it was more like, can the brutality of that time period be a backdrop for a more interesting story than horses and cowboys running through the town shooting things up? And, but that's a good observation. I just liked being outside. It's free art direction. It looks great, and but I saw it more as just a backdrop to telling this tale.
I want to. There's a tremendous amount of artistry. I mean, you're making it sound like you got all of this for free, and you might have, but I mean, just capturing it all in terms of like the cinematography. The opening shot is very. I mean, it looks like a painting, and I couldn't quite believe that I was looking at real life photography. What can you tell me about capturing that look or deciding on that look, working with your
Sure.
DP?
Sure. It's very funny you mentioned the opening shot. I've had a number of people came up to me afterwards and said that was CG, right? And I was like, no, that was great luck on a perfect day where God said, "Here's your shot." And then right after that, Ian, we turned the camera sideways to shoot the guys in the cage, and it's overcast. So, we just happened to catch that. I spoke for a long time with my DP Justin Hamilton, who did a beautiful job, and we picked out several movies that we were like, this would be the great vibe we'd want to be in. We shot it kind of classically. It doesn't feel like, it just dropped out of 2000. And, I wanted it to have a little bit of staying power as a story, but also filmically. And, you can only aspire to be Roger Deakins, but I look at what he has done, with the Coen brothers is right up what I love. I love characters and dialogue and beautiful film. And so we talked at length, put a Bible together, and we showed it to everybody on the set, right down to catering. We were like, this is the movie we're making, guys. Get on board.
Excellent. Well, this leads right into a question. I'm going to jump ahead in my own list, but in addition to the screenplay's brilliant twists and turns, I was floored by what appeared to be a lack of CGI gore and blood splatter effects, and the sets and the costumes didn't just look period; they had that worn down, rugged look. I mean, people talk about Ridley Scott's Alien, the ship in the Nostromo looking like it was a lived-in world. You accomplished that here with a Western. Can you talk about what it took to build Killing Faith from a practical standpoint and the challenges of putting all this together in some really harsh, like real world environments?
Uh, Thank you. Yeah. People have said you've created this world that does feel lived in. And I've said in the past, I showed people, the Bible of what we were going for, and I asked them to watch movies, and I said, watch this movie because we're not doing that. We're not doing clean cowboy outfits, and everybody's hair is perfect. And right down to hair and makeup. It's like, hey, here's your inspiration sheets. This is what faces should look like. I want teeth yellowed down. I want hair greasy. Everyone's going to be dirty. People would come on the set, and I'm like, you're not dirty enough. Roll around in the dirt for a little bit. Um, but it was that, and really finding the right locations, that felt different or unique. And I don't know that people really have shot in this. And it's also, we're an independent, so we're hustling through all of this. I'm not sure if I answered your question 100%, but what was the other half of it? I'm old.
Well, oh no, no, no. Maybe it's a decision. I don't know if it was budget wise or just in terms of your vision, but talk about there's a lot of blood and violence and
Oh,
gore
oh,
that
oh, yeah, you
punctuates the film,
mentioned
but
this.
it's practical, right?
Yes, you mentioned the CG. I prefer practical over CG whenever we can. I just think there's just, you feel CG. You just feel it. It's hard to articulate. And there was a lot of conversation. I won't do any spoilers, but there's a scene at the very opening with a horse. And I was told, oh, we can train a horse to lay down. I'm like, that's not going to work. And I was like, oh, somebody was like, well, we can just do that whole thing in CG. And I'm like, there's no way I'm letting you do that. So we built that. And a lot of the effects, the practical effects, were from years of me working with good friends at Legacy Effects, and they do all Jurassic Park and Marvel, but they were like, "We love this film. We'll do anything for you."
Wow, that's great, and it does show in the final result. You've got a dream cast here. Can you talk about snagging DeWanda Wise and Guy Pearce and Bill Pullman into this weird indie horror western that you made?
I, you know what? They all will say if and when you talk to them that it really comes down to the script. I'd love to say, "Oh, Ned's just a nice guy, and I wanted to do a film with him." If it's not on the paper, and a Guy was the first person I went to. So was actually DeWanda and Bill, all first out of the gate. Now, Guy, we couldn't get to him. He was busy the first time, so we went around and then we came back to him, and he was like, I want to talk to this guy. We talked for hours just about life and everything, and I'm like, this guy is fantastic. I couldn't think of another Bender that can really embody the brokenness and the soulfulness. DeWanda, it was shortly after that. I mean, it was like I think I saw her in Jurassic Park, and I'm like, that's a strong-willed, that's not a victim. And I really look, I'm a middle-aged white guy, if you haven't noticed, and the last thing I want to do is do something, that's a movie that tips in that direction. And then I will say, Bill came on at the very last minute. We went to him a year ago, and he was busy shooting something, and we thought we had somebody else at the time. And then we came back to him literally about 5 days before we shot, and he was like, "I love the script. Let's get going." So,
Wow.
and people are like, "I've never seen." They don't even. They're like, "I've never seen Bill Pullman like that ever."
I I thought the same thing, and it's a hell of a performance, literally. Um, I spoke. My last question kind of ties back to what we were just talking about. I spoke with DeWanda earlier today about the ambiguity of the film's supernatural elements, and she said that she and her co-stars had a firm grounding in what the strange events all kind of meant for their characters. Yet there are a few secrets left for the audience to puzzle out for themselves, at the end. Did any of the cast's ideas about the themes and meaning of Killing Faith change the way you felt about those when you were, writing the screenplay or even, shooting?
Yes, yes. Um, it always gets better when you're. I mean, filming is if you're open to collaboration and going with the moments and using your instincts, it always gets better. And I think the depth of love that DeWanda and empathy that DeWanda brought to that girl kept her from being the little girl a monster and really leaned into the ambiguity. I think and Guy and to be honest with you, Guy and DeWanda really pressed me on one of the scenes that's one of the more emotional ones because they were like, and they were all about the film, all about the film. It was like, we think this needs more emotional weight, and I'm like, of course, I'm like, well, I don't think so because I've written it perfectly. And but when you trust these guys made a lot more movies than I have, and so when you trust them, it really leads to something much better. And I'm thrilled that we're hitting theaters. I mean, I'm thrilled that everybody saw this and was like, "We have something special. Let's get it into theaters." As you know, it opens this weekend, and fingers crossed. I mean, I got a tweet from Stephen King last night that blew me away. He said it's a supernatural western with echoes of Cormac McCarthy, and he said he was shocked by shocked by it, and I'm like, if I could shock the shocker, I'll die a happy man.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on the film. I know you've got something else that you're sort of developing, right? What's next on the horizon for you?
I'm shooting something this fall. I'm not at liberty to talk about it yet because they
Oh,
want to announce a thing, but it's in you nailed me. It's going to be in the same sort of creating a little bit of world with really fun characters and exploring a little bit of that. And then I think I have to be done with my good and evil trilogy. I'll move on to something else. I'll write a happy Christmas movie. I'm going to go to Hallmark.
oh no. Not that there's anything wrong
No,
with
no, no,
Hallmark,
not
but
that.
I think you're in the zone though. But Ned, thanks again for talking with me. It really is an incredible achievement. You are right to get that tweet from the master of suspense.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great to
Congratulations.
see you again.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Great to talk to you, and reach out to me. I'd love to catch up at some point.
Will do, sir. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Take care.
All right, Ian. Thank you.
All right, bye. Hey everyone, Ian here. I know, long time no see. But if you like the video you just watched, feel free to subscribe to Kicking the Seat right here, and also check out the playlist and recommended video right here. Thanks for watching.